Welcome to The Passionate Pundits, your opportunity to increase your knowledge of natural health and healing, a viable alternative to modern Western medicine. With your host, holistic chiropractor Dr. Juliadeer and nutritional consultant Deb St.Hilaire.
Hey, Deb. Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
Good. It's so nice to see you.
You too. I feel like we're strangers all of a sudden.
I know. It's been, well, I was sick, so that's one of the reasons. I certainly didn't want to get you sick, for goodness sake. Wow, that's a long intro. I like it, though, because it gives us a chance to visit just a tad.
Yeah, before we get into the serious business,
yeah, because
right?
This is serious.
We
mean
so
it.
Serious.
Silly.
Yeah, we do mean it. It's super important. We have to stay on top of our health.
That's right.
You just said you weren't feeling well. Like, it's been going on this whole time. That was a question mark at the end.
Oh, and okay, so I'll answer it because, when I shake my head, they can't see me. Yes, it has been, and it turned from one thing to another, but it was all part of that flu.
Yeah, and that's just kind of what's been going on. It's like it lingers. It kind of pretends like it's going to go away, and then it brings its ugly head back up and rears its ugly head again.
I'd wake up in the morning and I'd still not feel good, but it would be for some other reason.
Oh, well, tell me about that. What other reasons?
Well, first I was kind of sick to my stomach, but not really.
Okay.
And then I got over that, and I woke up one morning and I had that fever that didn't go away for 3 days, and I stayed in bed, and for 2 days I was totally in bed. I didn't even care if I drank. That's how bad it was. Mm-hmm. And
you're talking about water, though.
Yeah, and wine. I didn't care if I drank anything. And Steve brought me home soup, which always feels good, but I didn't. I could hardly eat it. I just wasn't hungry.
Right.
No appetite whatsoever.
Well, what do they say? They say feed a cold, starve a fever. So that probably was your body telling you that.
Right.
Yeah. I believe that.
And then it went into, and I just got better from that, and then it turned into a cold. I never got a sore throat, though, but I did get a little slight earache and really bad chest congestion. And still in the morning, I'm coughing.
And some of that could have been your spleen, too, because this wet, damp weather has just not been good for everybody's spleen.
So what do you do for your spleen?
Well, the spleen is one of those organ systems that nobody knows a lot about. And nobody really teaches you about it. Like, if you ask the general public, what does your spleen do? I don't think people would easily.
I would have to look it up.
Yeah. But the spleen is a super cool organ. So I'm going to kind of tell you about it because
Then I won't have to look it up.
And I love talking about spleens. So really what the spleen is it's a major digestive organ. People don't realize that. It hugs right up against your stomach. It's kind of down on the lower left side, and it's right under your left side rib cage, and it hugs up against your stomach. And when you put food into your stomach, the food starts to separate, and the cream of the crop nutrients sort of rise to the top, and that gets sucked through the stomach wall into the spleen, where the spleen actually carries it from there via the lymphatic system to all the major organ systems. So they get the best of the best. Your brain, your heart, your lung, everything gets the best of the best. And then what goes through the rest of the digestive tract, the small intestine and the large intestine and all that, that's kind of the seconds. That's the secondary nutrients that, she can live off of them, but we really want to get these best ones to the most important parts of her first.
Well, thank you, spleen.
Yeah, absolutely. We should all do a little cheer for the spleen every day. And then the other thing it does, which is really interesting, is it plays a huge role in our immunity because that was my phone. Because it makes white blood cells, and the white blood cells obviously are the ones that are killing. Thank you, Patrick. Killing all of the bad for me's, all the bad guys, the bacteria, the viruses, all that. So we want to make sure our spleen is producing those white blood cells for us. And then again, it pumps things through the lymphatic system to get them out of you. Like, for example, people always think, well, our trash goes out through the colon. Well, that's just the food trash. The rest of the stuff, the dead red blood cells and the dead phagocytized bacteria and viruses that your body's chomping up and leaving debris behind, all of that stuff gets carried out through the lymphatic system too. So it's all the other stuff. That's our trash dump for all the other stuff that our body does and all the processes that it does. So that's a very important system. And when lymph is stagnant, and it just sits in your lymph nodes and it's not moving through your body, it causes soreness and tightness and stiffness. And, I'll have people come in, and when they come in and they say, "Hey doc, I'm really stiff and sore head to toe," automatically I think spleen. It's got to be your spleen, because that's the only organ system that really goes through your entire body. Because we have lymph nodes through our entire body. The rest of the organs kind of refer pain to certain areas, but when you just feel crappy all over, it's usually the spleen. And in Chinese medicine, spleen is super important. They pay a lot of attention to the spleen in Chinese medicine.
Ayurvedic medicine as well.
Yeah.
There's even concoctions that they have you mix to boost your lymphatic system, and so in turn your spleen, right?
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with the Ayurvedic practices, but I know that they are wonderful and they know what they're doing. So, so I would definitely agree with that. And so the spleen, there's a couple things you can do for your spleen naturally. One of the things is that the spleen does not like cold, damp weather. So when it's damp outside like this and cold.
That's why I hurt all over.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I
just
ached.
Oh, it's arthritis or, the barometric pressure. And that can have an influence, but a lot of times it's because your spleen is
that
mad.
makes so much sense.
Yeah. And so the lymph just gets kind of stuck and isn't moving through. So you're not releasing your debris as easily as you should. And so then usually the kidneys get a little upset too, because they filter the lymph through to get it out of you. So it's super important that you make sure that spleen is functioning at its optimal. And because it doesn't like cold, damp weather, one of the best things you can do for it is warm liquids and warm food, comfort stuff.
Oh, that's why your body craves comfort food too, isn't
Especially
it?
in the cold weather,
right?
What do we want most when it's cold
Soup
outside?
And stew and soup.
Yes. And soup. Hey, just for everybody's knowledge, Deb loves soup.
I love soup.
So this is why we're talking soup. But soup is so good for you. And another thing that spleen doesn't like is cold raw vegetables. Now, again, here I am again. Why do I have to be that one? I'm always the one saying, something against vegetables. Are you kidding me? Veggies are so great for us. But when your spleen is acting up, it does not like cold and raw. So I definitely ask people to blanch their veggies for about a minute. Blanching, put it in boiling water for just a minute just to get the chill off. Or if I go to a restaurant and I have a cold salad, I will definitely order hot tea along with it or soup so that I'm counteracting the coldness that hits my stomach.
So you can warm it up on the way down.
Yes. What happens when you touch something cold? What do?
I go, oh.
Yeah, and you get away from it, right? You're like, oh, I don't like that. Well, that's exactly what the spleen does to the stomach. He's supposed to be right up against the stomach, but when you put something cold in your stomach,
he withdraws.
He withdraws. He turns away. He pulls himself back. No, I don't want
So then
that.
he can't get those nutrients.
That's right. Then you're not digesting properly, or you'll hear the term assimilation of nutrients. And people are like, how do I get my nutrients to assimilate? Well, you got to make sure your spleen is happy, because your spleen is your biggest assimilator. It's the one that's taking them and getting them where they need to be. So some other things you can do other than cold, warm foods, because that's probably the best way. Dry body brushing. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Ooh, I love dry body brushing.
I do too. Loofah.
Yeah,
yes.
You can do that. You get like natural fiber brush. You can Google videos on YouTube. There's all kinds of different techniques.
And it's not only good for your insides, it's good for your outsides too.
That's right.
Especially in the winter.
Yes, it exfoliates the skin, gets the dry skin off of you, makes your body start to create new cells, new skin cells. So it stimulates that production. Gets rid of wrinkles over time because you're loofahing, basically. But it also stimulates those spleen points, and the spleen points kind of run along your arms and down the inseam of your britches, down your legs to your feet. And so you'll find different techniques, and there's some real intricate ones that are like 20 minutes long. I don't have time to do that all. But basically, everything is towards your heart. So when you start brushing, you brush up towards your heart. And I've got a couple that I like that are like 2 minutes long. So I'll go in the bathroom in the morning and I'll quickly just...
Before you jump in the shower?
Before I jump in the shower, I'll just dry body brush, get all that stuff and get everything moving and flowing. And then I'll jump in the shower and I'm good to go. And it really doesn't take long. And once you work it into your routine, it's just like everything else. It does not take long for it to become part of your routine. And so I do that. And then another good thing for spleen, what was I going to say? There was something else. You talk for a minute. I'll remember in a minute. I always do that.
My friend was in a motorcycle accident years ago, and he had some damage to his spleen.
Yes, and that's most unfortunate. And a lot of times people will tell you, oh, I've had my spleen removed, or my spleen was enlarged, so they took it out. Well, shoot. Like, now what are you going to do? I mean, you can live, you can survive, but I hate when people talk about organs as if they're disposable. Like, oh, I probably don't need that anyway.
So then how would stuff get to the lymph nodes if it's not going through the spleen?
Exactly. I mean, I really don't know. I wish I had that answer. In fact, I think I'm going to go home and research that because I really don't know. But I do know that, whenever you are missing an organ, the rest of the organs have to work that much harder to pick up the slack. So I'm sure that there's another avenue that it travels. But, that's the thing making a lot of your white blood cells. We do make white blood cells in a few other parts, but it's our major producer of those. So people who lose their spleen end up usually having compromised immune systems.
Right.
So that's tough.
And those toxins just sitting there.
Right.
So that's double whammy.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I know the other thing I was going to talk about. Jumping on a trampoline. Or doing bouncies on a ball. It's very good to move the lymph through the lymphatic system. So I like those little rebounders. Have you ever seen those? Little personal rebounders.
I used to have one, yeah.
Now I recommend, especially if you have a balance issue that you're holding on, have something there that you can hold on to, whether it be a chair or something. Don't just be bouncing willy-nilly. Lord have mercy, don't break your leg. I don't want you rolling an ankle or something.
Help me, I've bounced and I can't get up.
Or what if you're on the ceiling, you bounced and you can't get down? That would really...
It would be the opposite of that Tom Hanks movie. Remember that when he's sinking in the floor?
No.
It would... What was the name of that movie? Money Pit, yes.
Oh, Money Pit, that's right.
And he's in that rug. It would be the opposite of that.
That is so
funny. It'd be
funny.
going up, yeah.
Why do we get on these weird things?
I don't know. It's weird. So then that makes me really feel a lot better why my whole body ached. Because I'm telling you, I just couldn't. I was like shuffling around like old Grandma Moses those first 2 days.
Yeah, it's something that you literally feel, and it feels like inflammation. It feels like you have arthritis throughout your whole body is what it feels like.
Every joint, yes.
Yeah. So that will help if you're in those circumstances. And this is just, I'm kind of strange this way, but I think it should be kind of a couples thing. Like, why can't you body brush each other? Wouldn't that be kind of a nice little intimate thing to do for each other, especially if you're sick? Have your partner body brush you. If you don't feel up to doing it, let him or her do it for you. And that's kind of a nice thing. No, you don't really want to feel intimate when you're sick a lot of the time generally, but it's a grooming, it's a caring, it's not sexual. It's a nice thing to do for one another. It's caring for each other.
And that's why chicken soup tastes so good. Soup, again, we're back to soup. Because it warms you up inside as well.
It warms you up.
So it's like